Hey folks, Cool18 here, and welcome to the continuation of my preview for Europa Universalis 4. In this video, I'm going to talk about the multiplayer event that took place in Stockholm, Sweden, with members of the press, plus some developers of Paradox Development Studios, the actual people who made Europa Universalis 4, and what happened around that trip. And, you know, it's going to be somewhat vloggy style, but just to give you an impression of the experience. Because part of the reason they set this up is very smart. Because usually when you send out these preview copies of a game, they tend to be played solo. And one of the things that makes the grand strategy games from Paradox quite amazing is when you play them in a multiplayer setting. There's just something about the sort of political backstabbing and sort of interesting gameplay that happens when you actually have multiple human beings in one game. So they decided to invite a bunch of us to go to Stockholm, sit down in a LAN environment, and 20 of us played this game together, and to really get a feel for how the multiplayer would work out. So it was a 2-day event. The first thing we did is we visited the actual Paradox Development Studios themselves. We got a tour of the place. We got a few presentations, sort of a general talk about the philosophy of the company as a whole and what kind of direction they wanted to go in, specifically with their games as well, and of course a discussion of EU4. And then after that, we actually went to the venue. Now, one of the things that's quite obvious of visiting Paradox people is they love history. They absolutely adore it. Some of their rooms in their buildings are decorated in very interesting and strange ways. In fact, if you've ever watched some of the videos that come out of Paradox, you can often see these strange rooms in the backdrop. They have their vampire room. They have all these gothic bookshelves and things. Very interesting place to visit. But yeah, then we went over to the venue, and the venue for the multiplayer event was literally in the armory of the Swedish Royal Palace. So we're walking in here, we've got suits of armor, we've got all these old banners and flags and coats of arms, and you're seeing all this stuff, and it's just absolutely stunning to see. And then right in the middle of this whole setup, there is a long set of tables with the computer set up, which is where we ended up playing this multiplayer event. It was a beautiful, beautiful environment to play the game in, and really set the mood up. So we would play for a couple hours, take a break for some food, play for another couple hours, coffee break, a couple more hours. I think in total we got in about 10 to 12 hours of gameplay over 2 days. It was in a single session, and I'm actually not sure how many years we actually covered in that time span. Everyone was assigned a nation to start off with, and we had a couple of days' notice about our nation, so we were able to practice just a tiny bit. Specifically, I was assigned with Muscovy, or the Grand Duchy of Moscow. This is the entity that would eventually form Russia in actual history, and my goal in the game was to also pull that off. Now, I was in kind of an awkward situation because I was sandwiched between two developers. To the west, we had Lithuania, and to the east, we had, well, obviously there's all the hordes and everything in there, and specifically Johan Anderson, or Johan. They say Johan, but I always thought like you would pronounce it, I don't know. Johan Anderson, which is the lead programmer for Paradox Development Studios, was to my east playing as one of the hordes, and I knew that was going to be a problem. But I didn't care. I didn't care what happened to my nation as long as I actually had the opportunity to form Russia. So many countries have these sorts of options, and they tend to involve controlling a few key provinces, and maybe meeting some other requirements. In particular, having the administrative tech level of 10 seems to be one of the important bars for everyone. So as Muscovy, I had to claim a few provinces here and there, and I think when they set up the situation, they were intentionally trying to create some friction between me and Lithuania, because Lithuania controls a province that you might need to form Russia. But I think the developers weren't actually aware, because obviously this is a game in production. This is a game still being developed. Lots of changes are still taking place every day. And as it turns out, the decision to form Russia had been tweaked at some point during the development progress, so that you don't actually need, I think it's Smolensk. I don't know how to say it, but Smolensk, I think, is owned by Lithuania, and they thought that you still needed to control Smolensk to actually take over, to form Russia. But as it turned out, I had the option of taking that or Novgorod. As long as I had held one of the two, that was sufficient, plus a few other things here and there. So I think they were setting us up for constant warfare over this province, but as it turned out, we made peace and alliances pretty early on. Not that that would last forever, but it went pretty good. So there was plenty of battles between me and the hordes, and the problem with fighting the hordes early on is they actually have quite a few technological advantages. Specifically, they have huge bonuses when it comes to cavalry. Their cavalry is much, much better than most people's, both just sort of technology level, but mostly just variety of built-in bonuses. I mean, historically, it makes a lot of sense. Not only that, but depending on what decisions they make, they can actually have a much higher percentage of cavalry in their armies than usual, because normally the way it works is there is a cap. You have your infantry, you have your cavalry, and as long as you have a mix, then you actually get a combined arms bonus. And cavalry tends to be better than infantry in general, but the problem is if you have too much of it, then you lose that combined arms bonus, and you're sort of going downhill. But as the hordes, depending on how they build it, they can actually end up with, I think he was rocking like 70 or maybe even 80% cavalry by the end of it. That combined with the fact that he'd put in so many points into improved cavalry just power, meant that he was literally, Johan was literally beating me, even though I had a huge amount more troops. I'm talking about something like 30 plus troops versus a group of 20. I would get slaughtered. And that was just, that was a very painful lesson to learn. But even before we got that, before I actually started fighting the hordes, we had actually gotten some skirmishes with Lithuania, because I'd created, or not I, but we had created a three-way alliance between me, Poland, and Sweden. And we'd plotted, and we're going to talk more about the multiplayer features later on, but there's some great new chat features in the game where there's this sort of global chat, but you can also whisper to other players, and you can also create custom channels within the chat. So you could create a channel for our eventual war versus Lithuania. And so we had this great like three-way alliance going on. We had Lithuania surrounded. We were going to go and attack. But again, we'd failed to calculate the fact that Lithuania was being run with a dev with fantastic multiplayer experience in the game, and he just danced circles around us. We had him outnumbered, and in a straight-out fight, you know, we would have been able to fight him, but he was able to pull us into sort of dead ends, cut us off, surround us, constantly attack us with superior forces, made great use of mobility, made great use of the new force-marched ability to move the troops around faster, and just, even though we vastly outnumbered him, was able to just pick us apart in a ludicrous fashion. So I actually take that as a great sign that there's a lot of room in this game for strategy and tactics and really sort of mastering the game. It's not just about smashing two stacks together and see who ends up being the victor in the end. So in the end, I did form Russia, and I was really, really happy with all that performance. In fact, they ranked us at the end of the event, all 20 of us, from 1 to 20, I suppose. And I made it in the top 5 for, you know, just sort of general success. The number one overwhelming winner for the event, I believe, was the person playing as Castile, which didn't get involved in too many wars. In fact, both Castile and Portugal didn't get involved in too many wars. And Castile had more experience than Portugal and was able to do a lot more colonization. And I can't remember what the specific numbers were by the end of it, but their income, Castile's income per month, I think dwarfed by far my yearly income. Like, they made so much money, it's not even funny, from these colonies and just dominance of trade, and just didn't get involved with a whole lot of war. And it's great. I mean, you know, that is an amazing way to play the game and to take over the world. Some people like more warfare, some people like more trade. Now, as Muscovy, I didn't really have a chance to do colonization or trade. I mean, I'm landlocked. My my technology level is not even the same because I'm part of the Eastern Tech Group as opposed to the Western Tech Group. But, you know, I have a lot of really juicy targets around me. So playing as Muscovy, you're going to have a militaristic game, and it's kind of hard to break out of that. It's not one of the ones that really has a lot of flexibility in how you choose to play, as opposed to someone like Castile or France or England or many others. Very few countries are really sort of beelined in a particular direction, and they tend to be the smaller, less powerful ones, so they don't have quite as many options that way. But, I mean, with, like, what, 150 countries to choose from? Actually, I don't know if there's that many. There may be, though. There's a lot of nations to choose from. Whatever the number is, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of countries to choose from. There's going to be a lot of gameplay options there. So the multiplayer ended up being really good. Now, obviously, this is a game, when we were playing it, still months away from release. And despite that, it was actually remarkably stable. Again, with 20 people, I think the first day we didn't have a single disconnection or a single crash. On the second day, when people were messing around more with things like fraps and things like that, there were a couple issues here and there, but it was so far and few in between. I was just stunned by how well that worked. So again, we're going to talk about more about the specifics of the new multiplayer features in an upcoming video, but The experience was very good. We had a lot of fun. We got to see a lot of historical stuff inside of Stockholm itself, changing the guards, some really cool sort of landscapes. We got to eat some really interesting food, and mostly we just talked to the developers. I mean, you're sitting down for dinner, and across from you, you've got the editor from some large gaming magazine, and to the left of you, you have, on my first dinner night, I sat with the lead developer from Crusader Kings 2, for example. And then afterwards, we went out for some beers, and I spent the evening talking to, again, the lead programmers of Paradox. And then on the second day or third day I was there, I was able to sit down for 30 minutes and actually do a one-on-one interview with the lead programmer for EU4. And it, just a fantastic way to get a lot of information. I'm going to try to convey that as effectively as possible to you guys. And we're going to start in the next video. See you next time, folks.